So for the first time in more than half a century, we are heading back to the moon. But this isn't just a repeat of history. This is something totally new, something much, much bigger. So let's break down exactly how we're going to make this next giant leap. We all know the story of Apollo, right? It was this monumental achievement that put boots on the lunar surface and just completely captured the world's imagination. 9 missions, 6 landings, 12 astronauts. It was an incredible all-out sprint to beat the clock. But that brings up a really big question. We've been there, we've done that, so why go back? What is the point of returning to a place we already conquered decades ago? Well, the answer to that changes everything. See, the new program, Artemis, it has a fundamentally different goal. This isn't just about planting flags and leaving footprints anymore. It's about building a sustainable human presence on and around the moon and using it as a critical proving ground for our next destination, Mars. So what is it that makes this new era of exploration so radically different? Well, let's take a closer look. And this comparison just hits the nail on the head. Apollo was a sprint. Get there, poke around a little bit, and get home safely. Artemis is a marathon. The goal isn't just to visit, it's to stay, to build, and to actually learn how to live and work on another world. And to pull that off, well, you're going to need a completely new generation of hardware. All of it designed from the ground up with the single most important element in mind, the astronauts. So let me introduce you to Orion. This is our Deep Space Command Center. It's the vehicle that's going to carry up to 4 astronauts from Earth all the way to the moon and then bring them safely home again. It really is a marvel of engineering, and it's built in 3 critical parts. So each part of Orion has a very distinct job. You've got the crew module, that's basically the astronaut's apartment and office. Then there's the service module, which is the powerhouse. It's got everything from oxygen to engine power, and then you have the launch abort system. And this thing is just incredible. It's basically a giant ejector seat that can pull the entire crew away from danger if anything goes wrong on the launch pad. Of course, to get a beast like Orion into deep space, you need a staggering amount of power. And that is where the Space Launch System, or SLS, comes in. Okay, try to wrap your head around this. On the launch pad, the fully fueled SLS weighs over 6 million pounds. And get this, over 5.2 million pounds of that is just fuel. It even surpasses the legendary Saturn V, generating 15% more thrust at liftoff. It's an absolute monster. Once those engines ignite, there is no stopping what happens next. The first 8 minutes are just this thunderous, perfectly choreographed dance. 2 minutes in, the massive, solid rocket boosters fall away. By the 8-minute mark, that giant orange core stage is spent and it separates. A final push from the upper stage then puts Orion into a temporary parking orbit around Earth. Now, once they're in that orbit, this is the moment of truth. After all the systems checks and with a final go for mission control, the crew fires their engines one last time. The timing here has to be absolutely perfect to break free from Earth's gravity and set a course that will coast for several days, all the way to the moon. So as Orion is coasting toward the moon, we start to see the most fundamental difference between Artemis and Apollo. This is where that marathon strategy really kicks into high gear. So what's the big change? Well, with Apollo, the command module orbited the moon with its own lander. It was a single, self-contained, and completely disposable system. Every mission had to start from scratch, and pretty much every piece was thrown away. Artemis uses a completely different, much more sustainable approach. The key to this whole new way of thinking is pre-staging. Instead of carrying everything you could possibly need on one giant rocket, Artemis missions rely on sending things ahead of time. Think of it like setting up a base camp before you start a big climb. We're talking rovers, science experiments, and, crucially, reusable landers, all delivered in advance by commercial and international partners. And the hub for all this activity is the Gateway. It's not just a space station, it's more like a deep space port of call. It flies in this unique, super stable orbit that lets it access the entire lunar surface, including that really interesting, resource-rich South Pole. So it's the perfect docking port, science lab, communications hub, and the staging point for all those pre-staged, reusable landers. So once our crew arrives and docks with the Gateway, the most exciting part of the mission can begin, the descent down to the lunar surface. A few crew members will transfer over to the lunar lander, which has been waiting for them, parked at the gateway. Its journey is a carefully choreographed three-step process. First, it descends from Gateway's high orbit into a lower one. Then it makes its final powered descent to the surface. And after the mission is done, it launches all the way back up to meet the Gateway. And that is the crucial part that makes this whole system sustainable and reusable. After they reunite on Gateway, transfer back to Orion, and undock, the crew starts their long, multi-day journey back to Earth. But the mission is far from over. In fact, you could say the most dangerous part is yet to come. As they get close to home, the service module separates, leaving just the crew module to face re-entry alone. And it absolutely slams into Earth's atmosphere at a staggering 25,000 miles per hour. I mean, that's fast enough to get you from Los Angeles to New York in about 6 minutes. It's just unbelievably fast.
That incredible speed creates an immense amount of friction, heating that capsule's shield to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is about half as hot as the surface of the sun. The survival of the entire crew depends completely on this heat shield doing its job perfectly.
After the heat shield has done its thing and absorbed the worst of that energy, the capsule is still moving at about 300 miles an hour. That's when a precisely timed sequence of parachutes deploys, slowing the craft all the way down to a pretty gentle 20 miles per hour for a safe splashdown in the ocean. And with that, the mission is complete. But here's the thing, it's not an ending. Each successful flight isn't a finale, it's a building block. It proves the technology, and it paves the way for the next crew, the next experiment, and the next discovery. Which leaves us with a final, really fascinating question. Everything we're learning through Artemis, how to build, how to live, how to explore for the long haul, it's all just practice. So if the moon is where we prove what's possible, what discoveries are we going to make when we finally take that next giant leap to Mars?